Over to the compiers for the day.
Good afternoon and Jai Hind everyone. I'm Lalitesh with my co-host Srishti. Welcome you all to the first edition and the second day of Everyday Miracles, powered by passion, extraordinary stories of everyday lives.
Thank you, Lalitesh. It's truly said that passion is energy. It is a power one feels focusing on something that excites them. And today I'm elated to welcome Mr. Tanmay Tandon and Mr. Animesh Chaudhary as our guests. We welcome you, sirs.
Before moving further, let us invoke the blessings and pay our homage to our guiding lights. Founder Father Dr. Ishrat Madhok and Founder Mother Mrs. Deesh Ishrat Madhok.
त्वं कुरु त्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्
I now request Vice Principal Sandeep Bhagwanpur, Mrs. Prerna Sharma, to propose the welcome address.
Good afternoon and Jai Hind to each one of you and the guests also. Keeping a healthy balance between passion and work, it's a great idea because it allows us to explore and make our life more interesting and enjoyable. If you keep yourself limited to work only, it makes life boring and your opportunities also gets limited. So for self-development, to expand your knowledge, to expand your mind, it is very essential to follow your passion also. And hence, today I welcome Mr. Tanmay Tandon and Mr. Animesh Chaudhary here amongst us, who have been successfully balancing both their passion and work at the same time. They are successful today. Let us today listen to them, their experiences, and learn how to balance work with our passion and be successful, attain happiness, attain peace. Thank you and Jai.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Today, we have two very special guests with us, and one of them is Mr. Tanmay Tandon. Tanmay sir have been telling jokes since he was 5, professionally since he was 16. Being the youngest stand-up comedian in India ever, he has performed at Tedx Hansraj, where he got the opportunity to share the stage with Tina Darby. He was also felicitated by Big Projects Company for the same. His TEDx journey began with the first ever TEDx event of Lucknow, TEDx Indranagar. The other major landmark events of his journey of over 100 shows has been to share the stage with almost every major stand-up artist in India, including Kenny Sebastian, Kanan Gill, Abish Mathew, Amit Tandon, Saurabh Pant, Rahul Tua, Apurva Gupta, Kautuk Srivastava, Jeevshu Aluwalia, and Vipul Goyal. He is also extremely grateful to have had the opportunity to be a judge at a Pan Delhi College stand-up comedy event, as well as a Pan Delhi School stand-up comedy event, hosted by Symbiosis Law School and Alcon School, respectively, and to have performed in front of top-notch actors like Ayushmann Khurrana. As his top two goals are to build a YouTube brand as well as launch a Netflix special. He has started building content on YouTube and has thousands of views already. With all his great experiences, so far he believes the magic has only just begun. We welcome you, sir.
Thank
Thank you so
you,
much,
Lalitesh.
Thank you so much.
Before we move further,
Yes.
we have been joined by our Assistant Director, Ma'am, Pratima Ma'am. Welcome, ma'am, and thank you for taking time out.
So, our second special guest for today is Mr. Animesh Chaudhary. Sir was born in Jodhpur, Rajasthan, and spent his childhood there studying at TPS Jodhpur. He managed to crack IIT JEE and went to college at IIT Kharagpur, where he completed his bachelor's and master's in engineering. He then went to join In Shorts, India's #1 English news application, and is currently serving as managing editor. The flair was for writing was instilled in Sir long back when he used to write for and also edit the newsletter for his college. We are glad to have you today, and we look forward for an interactive session ahead.
Thank you, Srishti.
And we're also glad to be joined by the Principal Sunbeam School, Bhagwanpur, Gurmeet ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Now, I would request Mr. Tanmay Tandon to share his wonderful experiences in the journey of life and stand-up comedy.
Thank you so much, Lalitesh. I hope I'm audible, right? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon to all the respected teachers, vice principal, and all the students here. It's a great honor for me to be here to talk about my life story, which is, if I'll be very honest, when Natasha ma'am called me and she told me I have to talk about myself, I was very skeptical because today in this event, you guys have entrepreneurs, you guys have doctors, you guys have managing editors, and I'm just a comedian. Like, I just tell jokes, that's it. And I was initially very skeptical, but it's a great honor for me to be here to talk about. So I'll begin my journey from where I was born. I was born and brought up in Akbarpur. Akbarpur, if you guys don't know, it's a very small city, not even city, a district in Uttar Pradesh. So I was in Akbarpur till class 3, class third. I was there, and after class third, my father took a transfer to Lucknow, and I came to Lucknow. And from transferring from from a small town to a big city, to the capital of UP, I was a very shy kid. I was very shy, and being in such a big city, I was always scared. Oh, something will happen. I have to be quiet all the time. So I was in class third, and just to give you a example how shy I was, when I was in class third, I was too shy, too scared to ask the teacher what is the syllabus coming in my next unit test. And what my mom did, my mom wrote in the diary as an application, "Hello, ma'am, can you please tell my child what is the syllabus for this?" And ma'am looked at the diary and she's like, "Tum khud kyun nahi puche?" And that's just one example how shy I was. I was always afraid of speaking in class. I was very, like, I had major stage fright. I had a major stuttering problem. Like, I used to pronounce words wrong, and I used to be scared all the time of public speaking. But eventually, with time, uh, I realized stand up is one thing I want to do. It all started when in class 6, in class 7th, actually, in class 7th, when for this inter-school competition, my ma'am said, Tanmay, why don't you go and crack some jokes on stage? It's this inter-school competition. They're going to be, you have to perform for 5 minutes, and they're going to be like 5, 10 schools you have to compete against. And I was very scared because this is the first time I'm going on stage. Plus, I have to make people laugh. Like, I have to impress people. I have to make sure that people are having a good time. And I also had no idea what stand-up comedy was. So the first thing I did was I googled what is stand-up comedy, and I saw a lot of videos on YouTube. I figured out, I for the entire day I just watched, like, I watched like 100 or 200 videos on what stand-up comedy is, and I was just fascinated by this art. All these videos which I was looking at, like, people are cracking jokes on stage and people are laughing. I was like, okay, wow, this is what I have to do next week in some other school for inter-school competition. So I tried to write jokes. I wrote some jokes of my own for 5 minutes, and I performed in this inter-school competition. And I don't know how, but I won the first prize. And my school was very happy, and I was very happy because I found my calling. Because I was on stage for 5 minutes, I was someone who had stage fright. I was someone who was never a public speaker, and I made people laugh. And that feeling of making people laugh just gave me another, like, I was on cloud nine. I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to make people laugh. Uh, so there's always this one funny guy in class. No, I am pretty sure आप लोग में भी कोई एक class में एक होता होगा जो दोस्तों के एकदम group में बहुत funny होता है. And you love that feeling, right? You love that feeling of making people laugh. And that's what I decided. That's what I want to go after. But the thing was, I was in class 7th, and I was 15 years old. I was 15 years old, and in Lucknow, there were not many opportunities of stand-up comedy because, as you know, Lucknow, सब यहाँ शायरी करते हैं, तो यहाँ पर जितने भी open mics है, you guys know what is open mics, right? What are open mics? So open mics are platforms where anyone can go and perform any performing art. So Lucknow is famous for shairi. So all these famous shairis and shairs used to come for these open mics. So I was the only comedian in every open mic in Lucknow city who used to do comedy there. And I tried to do comedy in Lucknow for 1 or 2 years. I used to do comedy once a month or once a year, and I used to call myself a comedian, which I realized after so long that's you can't do comedy just once a year and call yourself a comedian. But I think school helped me a lot to perform on stage because every year on Teachers' Day, on annual function, on Children's Day, or any event, any class assembly, I used to make sure that I'm going on stage and performing stand-up comedy. That's how I used to get stage time in a place where there was no space for stand-up. And in Lucknow, when there were not many opportunities for open mics for comedians, I realized, wait, if there's no opportunity, I will make one for myself. So I started organizing comedy shows. I was the one. I went to cafes, I went to all these places, these restaurants, and I used to talk to them that we will held a we'll held a open mic, and comedians can come and they will barge up your sale and stuff. And luckily all these cafe owners, they all agreed, and I used to organize all my shows. And by doing this, by the time I reached class 11th, I remember one cafe approached me. They were like, okay, you do stand up, so I just want you to do your solo show and I will pay you. And this was the time I was in class 11. I was doing stand up, but I was not getting paid because I was not good in it, because I was still learning, and I still am learning. And but this cafe I know very well, Peddlers Cafe. They invited me and they told me that you perform for half an hour and we will pay you. And that was my first paid show ever. I cracked jokes for half an hour. Some worked, some didn't. Some people were laughing, sometimes some were. And that's just how it works. And I got paid 1,000 rupees for the first time when I was in class 11. And I was so happy. I went home, gave 500 to mom, 500 to dad. And they were also very happy कि अरे लड़का 500 रुपए कमा के आया 1,000 कमा के आया 500 दे दिए. And slowly and slowly I start getting recognized in Lucknow. I was doing a lot of shows every weekend. I was doing shows in Lucknow. And by the time I reached 12th, my class 12th, all these big stand-up comedians from different cities, like, Zakir Khan, Kanan Gill, Kenny Sebastian, these people started touring in all these cities. So for their tours, when they came to Lucknow, I remember it very well. Kenny Sebastian was the first ever big comedian to come perform his show in an auditorium in Lucknow. It was a 1,000-seater auditorium, and I was trying to book tickets for the show as an audience. I was trying to book tickets, but it was Kenny Sebastian, and the show was sold out. Like the 1,000 tickets sold out in 1 week, and I was not able to buy tickets as an audience. But just one day before the show, I got a call from Kenny Sebastian manager, and he said that he wants a local comedian to open for him. And I was on cloud nine. I was like, oh, done. I'll do anything. And I went to the auditorium. That was the first time I performed in front of 1,000 people for 10 minutes. And it was in Lucknow, and 1,000 people in Lucknow saw me. So I got recognized. I got that small little fame because now everyone knew, okay, oh, this is Tanmay, he does stand-up comedy, he's from Lucknow, and he opens for all the stand-up artists. So all these cafes started calling me, and slowly, Delhi University people, Hansraj and SRCC, all these colleges where I would never get admission because I never scored 95, 96% by 12. All these colleges started inviting me to come and crack jokes. And that started to happen. I was going to Delhi, I was going to Mumbai, I was going to Banaras, I was going to Bareilly, and all these cities I was getting invited, I was performing, and slowly, um I started performing everywhere, and then after 12th, I went to Mumbai for my college. I'm from Whistling Woods International. It's a college in Film City. It's a filmmaking college, but I'm doing mass communication from there. And when I was in Mumbai, I was invited by Hansraj. Let me just talk about the Tedx Hansraj story, how it all happened. I got a mail to perform in Tedx Hansraj. And they were ready to, they were like, we just want you there, and we are ready to pay for your travel, we are ready to pay for your stay. And I was like, okay, done. I was like, it's I'm coming from that place where I used to look for places to do just 5 minutes of comedy. I used to travel everywhere just to do 5 minutes of comedy, and now Hansraj is telling me, you come perform for however long you want, and we will pay you to come, we will let you stay in a 5-star hotel and stuff. And I was like, okay, done. That's all I want. And then TEDx happened, and TEDx Hansraj, the first time I performed in it, everyone loved me. Everyone, like the organizers, the principal there, the students there, the audience, they were very happy. And it was a great show. And after that, I was invited by TEDx to host the TEDx. They were like, you come again and you host the entire thing. So last year in 2020, in January, I hosted TEDx Hansraj, and I was invited again from TEDx to host it again. So Hansraj, I performed there many times in Delhi University, SRCC, in Hindu, and oh man, so many colleges, Saint Stephen, and all these colleges which are having their fest or are having any event. I used to go and perform for them, and that's how my journey is going on still. And I remember when I was performing in Hansraj, there was this comedian, Jiveshu Aluwala, if you know him. I opened for him in Lucknow, and he was there, and he knew me, and we had a nice conversation and stuff. And 2 days later, he came to Mumbai for a show. And I was at my flat, and he called me, and he's like, "Tanmay, kya kar rahe ho?" And I'm like, "Sir, kuch nahi kar raha hu." And he's like, "Andheri kitni der mein aa jaoge?" I'm like, "Sir, abhi आधे घंटे में आ जाऊंगा." And he's like, "Okay, अंधेरी आ जाओ, एक show है Hard Rock Cafe में, तू open कर दे, 10 मिनट कर दे." I was like, "Okay, sir, no problem." And I went there. I went there with my friends. My two roommates who were there, my two roommates were very excited to go because it was Hard Rock Cafe, and they thought, okay, show पे जाने का मिलेगा, कुछ होगा. And we went to Hard Rock Cafe. I went to Hard Rock Cafe. I realized कि वहाँ रेड कारपेट बिछा हुआ है, एंड वहाँ मीडिया आई हुई है. And I was like, क्या हो रहा है? I went inside, I met Jiveshu, and I asked him, what is this event? And he told me, this is the event, this is the trailer launch for Shubh Mangal Zyada Savdhan, the Ayushmann Khurrana movie. And Ayushmann Khurrana and all the cast members, the directors, and all these celebs from Mumbai are going to be there, and you have to perform. And I'm like, oh my God, okay, I'm used to performing in front of strangers, not in front of my idols, and not in front of these big actors. And my friends were way happier than me because they thought they're coming for a free show, but they realized they're going to meet Ayushman and stuff. So I performed for 10 minutes on stage in front of Ayushman. And there's this joke in my set where I say that I'm 18 years old and I do comedy. And when I said I'm 18 years old, Ayushman Khurrana in the front, he got up from the stage, he got up from his seat and he started clapping. He's like, wow, 18. And he just started clapping. And that was like, I froze. I was like, okay, what should I say? Ayushman is complimenting me. And there's this joke where I say that I'm a comedian. So every time I tell someone I'm a comedian, they're like, "Are comedian, chal jokes hua." And Nina Gupta, I'm sure all the teachers must know Nina Gupta. So Nina Gupta was in the audience. She asked me, "Acha comedian, to actors kya karte hain?" And I'm like, "Actors to acting hi karte hain." And she started laughing. So seeing all these big celeb and all these stars laughing, I was really I was this another level of cloud nine which I was in. I was so happy that day. And then the lockdown happened. And the live stand-up show stopped. So I started doing a lot of online Zoom shows. like this event is happening right now. Like everyone is from Banaras right now, and I'm sitting in Lucknow and I'm telling you guys about my life stories. So now I sit in my room and I tell my life stories to people in Mumbai, Delhi, and all these cities from Zoom shows. I've done over like 50, 60 Zoom shows till now. Every day I do like 1 or 2 shows, and I really enjoy it. And that was my life story, in a gist. But now to give you guys some lessons, because I thought, okay, I can't just keep talking about myself. Acha, maine ye kiya, wo kiya. So I would just like to say that everything I did, like you guys know Batman, right? Batman. Why did Batman become Batman? Batman became Batman because he was scared of bats. He was afraid of bats. So I became a comedian because I was afraid of stage. I had stage fright. I still do. Every time I go on stage, my hands shiver and I just can't speak. But that's something I overcame. That's something I did. I went on stage so many times that I overcame. So I know all the students here, they're very scared to do something new. They're scared like, "Are log kya sochenge? Are what if I fumble? Oh, what if I do this? Are main ye kaise karunga?" I'll just the only lesson I have to give is to not think at all. Like stop, like don't think at all. Don't think at all. Bas kar lo. And many people ask me stand up is tough and people don't laugh. Yeah, they don't laugh. They don't laugh. Many of the times they don't. Most of the times they don't. If you try a new joke, they won't. And I think that's what you have to learn, because the first show I did, nobody laughed. Second show I did, nobody laughed. Third show I did, some people laughed. Fourth show I did, some people laughed. Fifth show, many people started laughing. By the seventh, eighth, ninth show, people were having fun. People were laughing on my every line. So until you do your first show, you will never reach to your 50th show. Until you do your first assignment, you will never reach to your 50th good assignment. So until you start doing, you will never know. And many people spend their entire school life or college life or their life, just their life, thinking, okay, I will do this, I will do this, but they never act upon it because they're so scared, because they're so perfectionist. They think that to achieve something, they have to be best in it. Um, I'll just say until you start, you will never know what you're missing on. Until you start, you will suck for sure. And you're supposed to suck. You're supposed to fail in it. You're supposed to fail. And until you fail in it, you will never learn. So I think that's enough. And don't procrastinate. That's it. And study a lot. Because I have to say that because you guys are school students. And I think that's it. If anyone have any questions, I would love to hear it.
Thank you, sir, for sharing such wonderful incidents
Mm.
and experiences.
So now we request Animesh sir to share his experience of passion.
All right. Thank you, guys, and wonderful talk, Tanmay. It was very interesting to hear you. And good afternoon to everybody, and my respects to all the respected teachers at Sunbeam Bhagwanpur. So, yeah, I'll start off with a brief introduction of myself. I was born and brought up in Jodhpur. It's a tier 2 city in Rajasthan, and my both of my parents were government servants. So how I got into reading and the written word, basically, it's quite an interesting story that I'd like to start with. So while I was growing up, the 24-hour electricity that we seem to take for granted nowadays, and it's everywhere, that was not so common, and we often had 2 to 3 hours of power cut every single day. And that meant that the computer that I was mostly playing Age of Empires on, that was out of action. So I started picking up the several books that we had lying around the house. My mother was an English teacher, so we had no lack of those. And I'll be very honest, I didn't understand half of the words at first, but slowly and steadily, as I read more and more, and weird and weirder authors, I picked up what exactly was going on from the context that those words were being used in. So that's how I basically ended up developing a reading habit. And I'd like to thank the inefficiencies of the Rajasthan Vidyut Vibhag for helping me get where I am today. I realized that nowadays it must be even more difficult for you guys, to put down your phones and laptops or whatever personal computers you have. The games and social media being ever more pervasive, But to anyone else who wants to develop a reading habit, I'd recommend taking it a step at a time. You can start off with Indian authors or writers with a simple style like Ernest Hemingway, and slowly and steadily work up to writers with a more eloquent style. Anyways, back to my story. So soon after that, I joined the rat race at the Koda factory, where I was one of the few lucky people who happened to tick enough correct boxes on the correct day, and went off to IIT Kharagpur to study mining engineering. I walked out with my degree and landed a job as a software engineer in the campus placement. But there was this guy in my batch, Mr. Deepak Porkayasta, who had just started this startup called InShort, and he was like, just come and check it out for some time and see, how you feel the vibe is like. And I was like, okay, I'll do that. And like a couple of days passed, couple of months passed, and it's been over 6 or 7 years now, and never left. So over the years, InShorts has now grown to be the number one English news app in the country, and it's been a very, very fulfilling and interesting ride over here. But we still like to maintain that even though we're an English news app, we are a tech company, not a media company. Now that I've bored you guys enough in my life story, uh, I will like to take this talk as advice that I would have given myself if I had a time machine. I could travel back in time and talk to myself when I was in class seventh or eighth. What would I have told myself? Uh, so first and foremost, the number one point, where this thing where your parents tell you कि बस इस क्लास में पढ़ाई कर लो फिर आगे मजा है, बस बोर्ड्स कर लो फिर उसके आगे मौज है, या बस कॉलेज चले जाओ उसके बाद मौज है. That's a lie. All right. I'd like to tell this to you and myself back in the day. First and foremost, you can. There's no hard or fixed point at which you can finally rest on your laurels and chill out. Everyone, and I do mean everyone, needs to put in the work every single day. Otherwise, we fall behind in the rat race, or we fall end up falling behind our peers. There's also a Bollywood saying about this, that you're only as good as your last movie or last hit, and that's in life as well. Like, to give you an example, like you cleared the JEE, excellent, wow. So did other 5 to 10,000 other people. Now you go compete with them. Oh, you cleared the IM exams as well. CAT clear kar liya. Very nice, very nice. So you better study very hard, all right? You better get a very good GP, otherwise you won't get a good job. You got a good job as well. Excellent, beta, excellent, excellent. Now work very hard, otherwise you won't get that promotion. Right? So this cycle is endless. You can't ever rest and think, ab ho gaya. Now this is the time. I will chillax and enjoy. That doesn't happen in life, and which is why to sum up, this life you're living right now, it's probably the best time you've ever gone in your you're gonna have in your life. So enjoy it, enjoy the hell out of it as responsibly as you can, without sacrificing on the studies, which are extremely important. But make sure that you always live in the moment and learn to enjoy the present rather than just look forward to some imaginary milestone in the future. All right. And while you're enjoying this life, explore out of your comfort zone, as Tanmay rightly said and pointed out that he was very scared of going on the stage, and he actually had stage fright. So to combat that, he went onto the stage and did exactly what he was scared of, like Batman. So go out of your comfort zone. Like I know ragging is a bad word, but in my college, how ragging happened was, there was a general championship where they had a ton of events. So for ragging, we were made to participate in all of these events out of a comfort zone, things we had absolutely no experience in or an expressed interest in. They were like, सब करना है, सबको करना है, करके रहो, कोई बात नहीं, अच्छा लगे नहीं लगे, it's completely fine. You got to do it first. So this had the intended effect of, pushing us out of a comfort zone, making us try stuff that we would never have, done it ourselves just because we are too lazy or, chillaxed. So try your hand at new things ever so often, and you don't know whether, something that you try just because you just thought of it, you might end up enjoying it, or you might end up being very good at it just because you don't know that you are good at it. You haven't tried it so far. So go out of your comfort zone ever so often. Do things that you wouldn't have done ordinarily. Now, once you do that, you'll be surprised at the stuff you're actually good at or stuff you enjoy. And when it comes to picking your career after exploring a lot of things, there are three basic things that I'd like to tell you guys to three basic factors for this. Number one is things that you love to do. That thing should be something that you absolutely like doing. Things you're actually good at. Point number two, you should also be good at it. It doesn't suffice to be just something that you love. And point number three, most important, things that people would pay you to do, right? That should also be a skill that people are inclined to pay you for because you're so good at it. And to give an example, like I love playing cricket, right? But that doesn't mean that people would pay to watch me play cricket. Otherwise, unless of course they want to see a comedy show or me getting bowled at zero. But you get the gist. All right. There should be a balance between what you love to do, things you're good at, and of course things that absolutely pay you well enough to live out the lifestyle that you want to live out. And once you're into it, explore every corner of it. Like once you've decided, okay, these things fill all the check boxes. Now I'm going to explore every single point, every single opportunity I get about this. And if not, then of course you can always make these opportunities yourself. Like when I realized I wanted to get into the written word, I picked up every single thing on campus that was related to the literary or the journalistic inclination. Like I joined the campus newsletter in the first year, went on to become a chief editor. I served as a literary secretary in my hall, served as a literary secretary in my department, uh, went on to become the governor of the literary society in the campus. So there was a significant overlap between what all these places taught me, right? Most often than not, they ended up doing the same thing. But I did them nevertheless because I knew that the experience that I would get is invaluable, right? And even if you might think that this is something that okay, this is something that I've done before, but this is something that is going to teach me the same thing that I learned from this thing. But that's something that you absolutely need to do because practice makes you perfect. All right. Um, Point number three about following your passion or picking up a certain area of life as your career. There's this author called Nicholas Nassim Taleb. He is an excellent author. I'd highly recommend his works. Uh, he's made a point about jobs or a point about careers. Like there are two types of jobs, right? There's one in which you have to be the absolute best at what you're doing, and then there's the other where even if you're not the absolute best in the world and you're just average, you'll do well enough because that the demand for that particular skill is very spread out. So basically what happens is technology has made certain fields so accessible to everybody on the planet that they can get to pick the best of that. And then if you're getting into that field, you absolutely need to be the best. Like if you are think of it like this way, like if you are a singer, think of it as being a singer right now versus being a singer say 100 years ago, right? If you sang decently well enough in like the 18th century, you'd be a hit at all the village parties, right? And everybody will like, yeah, I want to hear you sing, I want to hear you sing. But right now with Spotify and YouTube and everything, you have to literally compete with Arijit Singh, all right, for people to stop and listen to you. Otherwise they can just plug in the earphones and listen to Channa Meri or whatever. But compare that job to the job of a hairdresser, right? You need one in every colony, and you don't have to compete with Javed Habib every single time you cut someone's hair, right? Because that is the demand for that particular skill set is very widespread. Now, tomorrow, if some company comes and there's a startup that cuts your hair as if Javed Habib himself would have cut it, then that is of course something that would move from category two to category one. But then again, the march of technology is relentless. Sooner or later, AI is going to come for all of our jobs. And since you would like all of you are pretty young and you would probably enter the workforce in about a decade from now, you need to figure out what the world would probably look like in a decade from now. If you want to play it safe, for about 90% of you, I'd recommend you should learn to code and not from predatory websites that blackmail you, emotionally blackmail your parents into paying for a lot of services. But mostly there are lots of free and very comprehensive resources available on the web. Make no mistake, that's something that you should try out. But for those, if you found your calling somewhere else, or you're very certain about what you want to do, then in that case, make no mistake, technology shall only help us scale, but it still needs a helpful and expert human hand to guide it, right? All right. Point number four, and lastly, but I think the most important point of all is that hard work would beat talent when talent doesn't work hard. All right, I'll repeat that. Hard work beats talent when talent does not work hard. So you may have a talent for something, you may have a natural flair for something, and all that is very good. But you'll have to put in the effort every single day to stay relevant and ahead of the competition while you're in it. To give you an example, I believe everybody here would have heard of a certain Sachin Ramesh Tendulkar. Several people in the country, pray to him as God. But the percentage of people who know of a certain Vinod Kamli would be much, much lesser. Right? Who was Vinod Kamli? In the words of World Cup winning captain Kapil Dev, he was much more talented than Tendulkar himself, who was his peer. But in the end, we know what became what, and actually left a mark on this world, and who drifted off into a certain anonymity instead. So that's the point. You might have all the potential in the world, but it is up to you to realize that potential. If you just have potential, you are just a rock on top of a mountain. It's you who needs to convert it into kinetic energy. You need to roll. So yeah, hard work's your friend, and there are absolutely no shortcuts to success. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your wonderful words. I would now request the Assistant Director of Sunbeam Group of Educational Institute, Mrs. Pratima ma'am, to please address the esteemed gathering.
Thank you, Lalitesh. Good afternoon, Jai Hind, everyone. And well, like all the listeners here, I too was mesmerized hearing both of you, Tanmay and Animesh, sirs, eulogize about your life journey and the absolutely wonderful work that you are doing. Listening to Tanmay, I was reminded of the line, which says, "Ghar se bahut dur hai mandir ka rasta, आओ किसी रोते हुए चेहरे को हंसाएं." What a wonderful way of giving back to the world by eliciting laughter in the most trying circumstances. And we owe a lot of our feel good and positivity during the pandemic to all the wonderful videos of the stand-up comedians which are available, on the YouTube and other forums. And I, for one, am an absolutely dedicated, converted, lapping up kind of a person of all these videos, because there is too much of life happening at too great a pace around us. So you need to step back and create time for laughter, because otherwise, हंसी बड़ी महंगी हो रखी है. So that is one of the reasons why I feel that you are doing a sterling job, by giving us all reasons to smile. And Animesh, the kind of tips you were giving and the kind of life lessons you were imparting to the students, I was thinking to myself, that most of my students would be saying that, again, these guys have done us in. They got us here on the pretext of listening to life lessons, and we have some wonderful people becoming our mentors yet again on the journey of life. So I don't know how much of physics or chemistry or biology or sociology or history is going to stay with you children in the journey of life. I'm sure you may not recall certain formulae taught in the classrooms. You may not even remember the dates of the Battle of Plassey and Buxar, but you will remember these people, these wonderful gentlemen who came and talked to you and gave you a slice of life straight as it is happening. And these are the kind of idols that we have to look up to and that we have to emulate, who make us, realize that not everything that is knowledge is there in the leaves of a book. In fact, life is happening to have more content than what is actually transferred in all the classrooms. And these are the real-time teachers, and these are the real-time idols that we have to look up to and we have to emulate. Thank you so much for being with us today. I would love to keep on being associated with both of you, and at any point of time, don't be surprised if Sunbeam Jagbanpur gives you a call and says that we are having an annual function, we are having a youth fest, we are having a conclave. Please come and talk to our children again and again. It was a pleasure listening to you both. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Take
so
care,
much.
everyone. Stay safe.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am, for your warm words. Now, we are heading towards the question segment of this session. So, starting with you, Mr. Tanmay, the first question: what was your turning point when you felt that you can be a stand-up comedian?
As I mentioned in my talk only, it was a time in that inter-school competition when I was on the stage for the first time, and I cracked some jokes. They were bad jokes, but they worked because they were students, and people were laughing. Just the fact that people were laughing, that feeling which it gave me, that I made a group of people laugh, that feeling, it made me realize that this is my call and this is what I want to do. That's it. Okay. Are you looking for a more elaborate answer?
No, sir, thank you. That was actually a elaborated answer.
Okay.
Second question for you, sir. What was your reaction to TEDx Hansraj when you got to know you will be sharing the stage with personalities like Tina Dabi?
Oh, TEDx was a great experience. When I was invited there for the first time, I was elevated. I was jumping with joy because TEDx has always been my dream. Like, um, um, I remember when I was in class 10th, I had to do this internship where I was a volunteer in Josh Talks. Now, Josh Talks is how do I explain it? It's like an Indian version of TED Talk. Okay, so I was a volunteer there, and I thought my job as a volunteer would be to set up stage or something, but my job there as a volunteer was to pick chairs. तो मैं गया हुआ था ऑडिटोरियम, आई वाज जस्ट पिकिंग चेयर में चेयर्स लगा रहा था, मैं लोगों के हाथ में बैंड डाला था जोश टॉक्स में. And just 2 years later, I'm giving a talk in one of the most prestigious institution in Delhi University, Hansraj. I think that was one thing. Coming from Josh Talk to TEDx, it was a great, just something which I never imagined.
Thank you, sir. That was really an inspiring answer.
So now the next set of questions are for you, Animesh, sir. Sir, you managed to crack IIT JEE and went to college at IIT Kharagpur, but you still chose to be the managing editor of InShorts. On hindsight, do you feel that you made a wrong choice of pursuing IIT in mining engineering?
All right. Several different angles to that question. First and foremost, I'd like to clarify I didn't choose to be managing editor straight away. I joined at an entry level position and I gradually worked my way up. And as the more important part of the question, no, I absolutely have no regrets about my education at all. Because let's be very honest, in our country at least, the education that you get, it's as ma'am said before me that it's not really, I might be harsh, but it's not really relevant to the skills that you require in the field. And more often than not, you learn that on the job, and you learn that as and when you get into the field that you're, gonna pursue your career in. So to give you an example, only about like 10 to 20% of the students in my batch end up pursuing careers in what we call the core industries, which are relevant to that particular education. So any which ways, anyways, in our country, you don't clear the IITJ because you want to. You clear the IITJ because you can, and then you go on with your life and do whatever you want.
Thank you so much, sir. So one more question to you is that do you ever unconsciously, while talking to others or while narrating an incident, talk in shorts, that is in news and 60 words?
Yeah, of course. So that's the thing about work. Since you spend, your majority of your waking hours doing that and thinking like that, and being in that frame of mind, like it or not, it ends up, influencing your personality and the way you interact with fellow human beings. So I've often found myself, being very terse or laconic with my replies, and getting, running out of patience when my friends drone on and on and on about something that could have been said in very few words. So yeah, that's a personality trait that you develop working over here. But that could also be, the shortening attention spans of a time. So who knows?
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing.
Can I just add one thing? And it's not a question. Anyways, sir, I just want to say that I'm a big fan of InShots, and that's one app I've been using it for so long. Cause मेरे घर में मम्मी पापा पढ़े हैं कि न्यूज़पेपर पढ़ो, वो पढ़ लो, ये कर लो, and I'm like मैं InShots डालो and I'm updated with all the news. And sometimes when I have to look for content when I'm out of content, I just go through the news because India mein there's so much content, and I just love all the headlines and all the content, the way it is delivered. I just love it. So thank you so much, sir, for this app.
Thank you so much for your kind words, Tanmay. And in the future, what I'll do is there are certain headlines that we structure them in a particular way because we know that what's
Yeah,
happened.
I have noticed, and I absolutely love it. I
So
screenshot
I'll
it.
send those stories personally to you in the future, so you
I
can
know.
make more content for your stand-up set.
Also, if I can add another thing, Shishti, I just wanna give a big shout out to Lalitesh for being so well dressed up and so well groomed. Like उसने बाल एकदम अच्छे से पानी ना धो के बैठा है. I just love how
Thank you,
कितना
sir.
cute लग रहा है. I just wanna say कितना cute लग रहा है. And great job for hosting it, and great job Shishti for hosting it. And all the students जो घर पे uniform पहन के बैठे हैं, बहुत बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so moving on with you, Tanmay sir, again. What do you think is the future of stand-up comedy in India, given the controversies that have cropped up in recent times?
Oh, that's a great question. I feel stand-up comedy as an art form is still developing in India because when I was in Lucknow, there was no stage for open mics. There was no forum for stand-up. And slowly, when I started organizing open mics, the culture, I won't say I started the culture, but the open mics I started organizing. And after that, when Zakir Khan and all these big comedians started to come to Lucknow as one part of the city to tour, that's one thing which really accelerated stand up in Lucknow and other parts of India as well. So I think right now it's a small community. Right now there might be 50, 60 comedians in Lucknow and there are 500 to 1,000 comedians in Mumbai, and they're still developing. But if I'll say 10 years ago, there were just 10, 20 comedians trying to make their community work. And what you talked about the controversy, I think since it's such a small community, I think every controversy helps every comedian, even if he's not related to that controversy, to help it. So if you remember when AIB roast happened, yeah, the controversy happened, the FIR happened, but because of that, the ticket sale of every comedian rose up. So when comedians were invited for a corporate show, we were given 50, 60,000 for a half an hour show or a 1 hour show. But because of the controversy, because many people watched that AIB roast and because many people watched that comedy and they understood what stand up is, the ticket sale just went up. And when Munawar went to jail, I know it was very bad, it was very unfair, but after he came out, he hit 1 million on YouTube and his career just went up. So stand up as a format is still developing. It's still going on because many people don't know how stand up works, and it's a culture which is still starting. And I know many people get offended on some jokes. So I just want to clarify in this one thing many people don't know. So in stand up, there's this one thing called punching up and punching down. So punching up is when you're talking anything about anything which is when you're talking about the oppressed, you make sure you're punching up, like you're talking about the person who's oppressing him. You're talking about the oppressor, not the oppressed. And punching down is like when you're making fun of the oppressed. So that's the thing. Even if you're cracking jokes on any sensitive matter, if you're punching up, if you're cracking jokes on a privileged person, that will count as punching up. And that's it. That's my answer.
Thank you, sir, for answering. So, another question for you again, sir. Do your parents also have a sense of humor as great as of yours?
Oh, they have a great sense of humor. I think my family is just crazy. My family is just hilarious. I think my mom, for a long time, I didn't know when I started comedy. My mom was like, I also used to do comedy in school, but that time it was called mono acting. So she used to go on stage and she used to act out these characters. So when she told me this, I was very surprised. "Ajay, aap bhi karti thi, acha." So, and a lot of my jokes come from my mom, my dad. Like I talk about them all the time. I talk about my dadi a lot on stage because I'm very close to my dadi, and my dadi is just very cute. My dadi, when like she has no idea what stand up is, right? So I keep explaining to her. She's always boosting to her friends because she's always like, अरे हमारा पोता वो स्टेज पे जाके भाषण देता है, वो फ्लेक्स कर रहे हैं, वो हमारा स्टेज पे जाके भाषण देता है. एंड मैं दादी को बोल रहा हूँ, दादी भाषण नहीं है, मतलब हाँ भाषण कह सकते हो, बट इट्स फनी भाषण. सो नाउ माय दादी थिंक्स आई एम राहुल गांधी. उनको लग रहा है मैं ये कर रहा हूँ स्टेज पे जाके. So yeah, that's where my comedy comes from.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for answering.
Now, coming back to Animesh sir. Sir, what are your fond memories of your college days? Were they fun-filled or were they only about studies?
Studies? Oh, no, no, no. Let me make this very clear. Absolutely none of my memories of college are about studying. Like zero, none at all. Because to be very honest, I hope my parents are not watching this, but there was very little actual studying going on. But in my experience, I've talked about this before. In engineering colleges, you end up learning a lot more from the fascinating and immensely talented people around you rather than the syllabus that you get. So I have a lot of unfilled memories with very fascinating people, and that's something that I believe is the best time I've ever had in my life.
Thank you so much, sir. So enjoyment is equally important. So, sir, what would be the three skills that you would suggest to the budding and upcoming journalists, editors, and writers?
Like, to add from what you said earlier, Srishti, enjoyment is not equally important. I'd say enjoyment is the only thing that matters. Very little matters otherwise, because we are all just like, talking monkeys on a spinning rock. Most of us, let's be honest, the life that we are leading right now, it would be best if we learn to enjoy it rather than, take it too seriously, because let's be honest, it's not very serious at all. If you look at the grand scale of things, it's quite pointless. As to your other question, what skills I would suggest to the budding journalists, editors, and writers, there's a couple of things. First and foremost, the main point of getting into this field of journalism or writing is to make sure that you understand who the end user is like. So the number one skill that you need to have is the ability to simplify very complex things and very complex topics and make it understandable or relatable to the average person on the street. Like the average person who's going to read it should be able to relate it. Otherwise, that story is pointless. Another thing that would really help would be, having a good nose for a story. Like reading something, and as soon as you read it, you snap and you're like, this is going to be big, or you knowing that, this is going to lead to a lot of ramifications. So that requires a lot of, news reading in, in the past, knowledge of history and what has happened in the past. So, because history is just, people who do not read history are bound to repeat it. So you're going to need to understand what has happened in the past, how human beings react to certain situations, and then, of course, apply it to the present day and time when you see new events cropping up. And third, something that's very important in this day and age, is the ability to stay fair and impartial. Because the news that's coming in today, it's very agenda driven, depending on who you're hearing it from, and it's highly divisive. So, being very sane and level headed in these times is very important. As an extra, apart from these three, I would recommend probably maths, because that's something that is going to help you every single area wherever you go. And currently, it's my personal opinion, but might be wrong, that even in journalism, the kind of journalism that we see, that data driven journalism that that's propped up nowadays, that could, I'd say, improve a lot. So maths would be a great skill to have as well.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Now, the final question for you, Tanmay sir. While writing scripts, do you take inspiration from real life incidents? And if given a chance, would you like to be reborn as a comedian?
Okay, to answer the second part of your question first, if I had the option to be reborn as a comedian, I will be very honest. When I started before stand up, I just want to say it out loud. I always wanted to be a teacher. I really, because when I came to Lucknow, I was just so fascinated because teachers की authority जो होती थी, बच्चों के सामने, the power they used to hold, and 50-60 बच्चे उनको बता रहे, and the kids are just listening to you, imparting your knowledge. I used to get so fascinated by it. Like that was something I always wanted to be a teacher. But then when I got to know, oh, stand up is this thing, which is the same thing. You have an audience, like students are your audience when you're a teacher. I was like, okay, stand up comedy is my thing. Uh, so the first question, why writing scripts, do I take inspiration? Yeah. So what many comedians do, their script, if they're great, they're just great writers. So for writing, you need to make up incidents, you need to make up stories. You are a storyteller. Even if it hasn't happened to you, you need to make story. So this is what great comedians do. That's something I still am trying to achieve. I'm still trying to write, but I can't. So all my incidents, everything I do, I'll be very honest, everything on my stand-up set is 100% true. So I have this joke in my stand-up set, like when the first lockdown happened, and from Mumbai I came back to Lucknow, and when I came back, my dadi, she took over my room. Like उन्होंने अपने सारे पोस्टर भगवान जी के लगा दिए थे, सारी जगह लगा दिए थे, मंदिर लगा दिया था मेरे कमरे में, सब कर दिया था. And which is fine, कोई बात नहीं, दादी है क्या ही कह सकते हो. But the thing is, after 1 week I realized जो हम लोग का बाथरूम है उसके उसके बेसिन में बस एक ही टूथब्रश है. And I was like, oh shit, I was like, या तो दादी मेरा toothbrush use करे या तो मैं use कर रहा हूँ, ये क्या चल रहा है? Like, it's bad either way. It's nobody is winning in this. So I went to my dadi. It's a true story. I went to my dadi and I asked her, दादी क्या सीन है, आप मेरा यूज करें, मैं आपका बता दूं, कुछ घर में रखा है ब्रश, मम्मी को बता देंगे, सेंसोडाइन ले आए. And my दादी उन्होंने अपने दांत निकाल के रख दिए, बोले मैं तो दांत तो निकली है ना. अरे so that's one true story which happened, and that's one this is one incident which I tell in my stand-up set. Yeah. So.
Thank you, sir. That was really an hilarious answer.
So now one final question to Animesh sir. Sir, do you yourself read short news and have you ever compared yours to them? And what are your takeaways from other news channels?
All right. So being in the business that we are in, you can't really differentiate. I read all sorts of news, short, long, whatever sort they come in, because that's what primarily the job is. You need to keep abreast, and you need to be aware of the news yourself to be able to tell other people. So yeah, I read all sorts, and of course, as to the second part of the question, uh, we obviously keep a very keen eye on the competition, what other people are doing, and what takeaways we could take from that, what we could learn from that, what is our understanding, why we could not come up with that particular feature, particular way of thinking, and if the kind of audience that we have, how would they react to something like that. So that's of course that's a discussion that happens ever so often in the product discovery process. So yeah, that's something that that often comes up. But one thing I'd like to stress over here is the fact that as I've mentioned before as well, the times are changing, right? But there are certain things which are not changing. What is not changing is the fact that uh, there's this inherent, I shouldn't call it kida, there's this inherent tendency in people that they need to know what is happening in the world around them. All right. When you are a caveman, you need to know, all right, what is happening in the tribe. When you are living in the country right now, you need to know what's happening in your particular state. Is there going to be a lockdown? So that particular tendency that has evolved over thousands of years, that is not going anywhere. Like that is going to stay. What might change is that what is the medium of delivery. All right, as a caveman, you came to know of things from gossiping with your other fellow cavemen while you're sitting around the fire cooking bison or something. Right now you do it by reading news on your phone or reading newspapers or whatever. So what has changed is the medium. Right now, the mobile phone apps that are giving people news, they are successful because the mobile phones are the predominant technology, like media delivery device of a day. In the future that might change, and that's that's of course a law of nature. Everything is going to change in the future, of course, but that thing which is permanent, which is the human tendency to read about news, that's not going to change. So everybody would need to adapt to new mediums as and when they come up, and of course we do that on a very regular basis.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing.
Thank you.
Wow, that was such an astounding Q&A session.
And I see that there is a lot of enthusiasm among the audience to ask questions. So, sirs, with your due permission, I now invite Achyut Pathak of class 7 to ask his question.
Good afternoon and Jai Hind, sir. This question is for Tanmay, sir. Kapil Sharma, Krishna Abhishek, and Kiku Sharda. Out of these three legendary comedians, with whom do you associate yourself?
Associated as like who do I relate to, like a comedian, or who do I relate to as an audience?
No, sir, like a comedian.
Okay, Ajud. I think I'm not very familiar with the works of Krishna or anyone, but I'm a big fan of Kapil Sharma because I think what that guy is doing is absolutely unbelievable. Many people in the stand-up world, like I'll be very honest, in the stand-up world, many people criticize Kapil Sharma for being a television. So I just want to say because uski audience hi alag hai, uska target group alag hai, uska audience alag hai. So if we comedians are cracking jokes in English and being cool on stage, being smart on stage, because our target group is different. And he comes from a very middle class family. His father was a policeman, and he had no comedy background and nothing in life, and he started from nothing, and he went on to win Comedy Circus like 6 times. Like, do you know any celebrity who just goes to a reality show and wins it 6 times? And after he did it for 6 times, Colors were like, okay, you do your own show. And he did his own show, and it was a revolution. I remember when the first thing, when Comedy Nights with Kapil, the first thing, not on Sony, when Colors, when on Colors it started, it was a revolution, because every day at 9 p.m. from 10 p.m. everyone was just there at the television, and everyone was fascinated to see what Kapil Sharma was doing. So I think I'm a very big fan of Kapil Sharma. I will not associate myself as a comedian because I don't think I can do what he does, but as an audience member and as someone who looks up to people, I think Kapil Sharma would be my answer.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for a valuable response.
Thank you, Pathak.
So thank you. And up next, we have Avni Gujarati from class 8. So please ask your question, Avni.
Good afternoon and Jai Hind, sir. It's a great pleasure to be here with all of us and listen to your own experiences. My question is for Animesh, sir. If you could tell your younger self writing anything, what would it be?
Just a little clarification. My younger self writing anything as to tips about writing, or could you expand on that?
So, like, if you could tell your younger self when you were young, what one thing that you would tell that person, what would that thing be?
All right. I tell that person to write every single day. So what happens is, especially in writing, I used to write poems, actually funny poems, while I was in college, and the longer poems ones when I was in school. But it was a very on and off kind of an event. Like, I wasn't very regular about it. So the one thing I'd tell younger me would be to do it every single day, because you don't have to be very good at it from day one. You don't have to be very good at it every single day, but you got to do it every single day. Like, there's a show called BoJack Horseman. There's an excellent line in that one where there's this guy who's running. All right, he's really unfit, and like he's sweating out on the road, and he's like, I'm dead. Why do people do this to themselves? Why are people running? And there's this guy who passes him by. He tells him that the only point is you got to do it every single day. It gets easier every single day, but you got to do it every single day. So that's with a lot of things in life, like with writing as well. You might not be great when you start, you might not be great after a month or so, but if you promise to yourself that you're going to do it every single day, take it a year, take it 2 years. If you're very talented, you will do it in a month. If you're not so naturally gifted for it, you'll do it in 3 years. But there's nothing on earth that's going to stop you. If you dedicate 10,000 hours of your life to certain things, you're going to be the very best at it.
Thank you, sir, for answering my question.
Thank you.
So next we have Shubhangi Pandey of class 9. So go ahead with your question, Shubhangi.
Good afternoon and Jai Hind, sirs. My question is from Animesh, sir. Sir, have you ever suffered from writer's block? If yes, please tell us, how did you cope up with it?
All right. Jai Hind, Shubhangi. And as for writer's block, yeah, of course, that's happened a lot. As in, what's happened is, to overcome this problem of writer's block, I joined an organization that made me write. Right. So every single day you absolutely have to write, and that's the output that's expected of you. So yeah, of course, that's one thing that you can do. You make sure that it's your job to write, and you can overcome that. But then again, that's something that's gonna affect every single person who gets into this field. So the only solution to do this is to force yourself to do something, right? As Tanmay also pointed out, he was not getting opportunities in his own town, so he made those opportunities himself. So there are certain times in life where things seem stacked up against you, and you're not really getting to do what you want to do. So you might have to think a bit differently. But there's obviously a solution around the corner if you really apply yourself and really make sure that you're going to do this one way or the other. The opportunities shall present themselves.
Thank you, everyone. That was amazing, this question answer session.
Now, we would like to request Mrs. Gurmeet Kaur, the principal of Sunbeam English School, Bhagwanpur, to extend the word of thanks.
Lalitesh, thank you so much. And before we actually move to Gurmeet ma'am, we have a raised hand from Natasha ma'am. So your special question, ma'am, please.
Yes, thank you, Ankita. It was fun listening to both our guests, Animesh sir and Tanmay sir. And thank you for coming. And so, Tanmay sir, I can't let you go. एक joke सुनाइए हमको.
अरे मैंने इतना तो जोक सुना, दादी का जोक सुना है, मैं दादी के 2 जोक सुनाती है.
I can't let you go like that. अब comedian आया है और हम joke ना सुने. आप हमें एक joke सुनाइए.
अच्छा, मैं एक जोक सुनाता हूँ जो मैंने कल परसों ही लिखा था. ओके, इट्स जस्ट अ वन लाइनर जोक, जस्ट अ वन लाइनर जोक. सो यू गाइस नो लॉकडाउन में कैसे सबका स्लीप साइकिल, आई नो स्टूडेंट्स को पता होगा, स्लीप साइकिल बिगड़ गया, 2-3 बजे सो रहे हैं सब. एंड आप कुछ भी मिस्टेक करते हो, कुछ भी लाइफ में मिस्टेक करते हो, तो आपके पेरेंट्स आर लाइक, अरे बेटा कोई बात नहीं, जब जागो तब सवेरा, जब जागो तब सवेरा. तो जब जागो तब सवेरा, तो कल रात मैं 9 बजे उठा. So that's it. That was just one liner joke I have.
Thank you, Tanmay sir. That indeed was nice. And with that, we have a flurry of questions, but then I'll take just one more. We have the Headmistress Junior School, Vibha ma'am, with her question.
Actually, my question is a little serious and it goes to Tanmay. Today's youth is very much influenced by the words used by media or the words used by comedians, actors in the series of web series. I just wanted to ask you this. What should they do to restrict themselves from usage of such objectionable words and abusive words?
I think 10 years ago, if you would have asked a student कि बड़े होके क्या बनना है, so his answer would always be pilot बनना है, astronaut बनना है, and stuff. But if you ask the student right now कि क्या बनना है, his answer would be, most majority of them would be YouTuber बनना है, या actor बनना है, या वो सब बनना है. So I think because of social media and because of this like upscale of, because Jio जब से आ गया, जब से internet सस्ता हो गया, everyone it's like graph में वो अलग next level गया है social media का usage. So obviously there's tons of content, tons of pop culture content out there on the internet, and all the students, all the youth is consuming it. And that's the thing about internet. You need to know that everything comes with advantage and disadvantage. So when there's something as bad content, there's something as educational good content. So if the student is watching series on alt biology, obviously his mind will be affected, he'll think about something else. But if he is watching a series on Prime or Hotstar, something related to his age, I think that's how restriction will work. And as at the end of the day, he's a student. Obviously he's gonna pick up some bad words, obviously he's gonna pick up something bad which he's not supposed to. And I think everything should happen according to it. So if he's 14 or 15, I think he should consume content, because every content which comes on internet has an age restriction. So as long as he's following the age restriction, good to go. Then after 18, whatever content he's consuming, it's up to him, like which line is he going for. So you can never make sure कि नहीं हर बच्चा सिर्फ यही करे. वो हर बच्चे का choice होगा, वो कौन से content पे देख रहा है, कौन से जा रहा है. But with time, I think ignoring the current media, he should always go for the traditional media. He should always read newspaper. He should always read books. So there should be a sense of comparison. Like एक sense होना चाहिए कि हाँ ये सही है, ये गलत है. So that's my answer.
Thank you so much, Tanmay. And now I understood that story has to begin also with yourself and end also with yourself. You have to choose and filter what is appropriate for yourself. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vibha ma'am, and thank you, Tanmay sir. And with that, may I request the Principal Sunbeam English School, Bhagwanpur, Mrs. Gurmeet Kaur, to please address the gathering.
I think some connectivity issue. Ankita ma'am, please invite Natasha ma'am.
No, ma'am. I can see her, but we can't hear her. Gurmeet,
Yeah,
ma'am,
I
please
think
try
there's
once
some
more.
audio issues.
Yes. Gurmeet,
Ma'am,
ma'am,
could you
please try once more.
Audible now?
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
So good afternoon and Jai Hind everyone. And I kept my question at wait so that I can ask when I'm giving the vote of thanks. So, Animesh, wonderful seeing you, the person who is actually into InShots. And InShot is there as an app in my mobile. And it's very quick and very easy to get in depth. In fact, I've been sharing a lot of, that information which comes with my students and teachers as well, and they were very happy about that. Everyday story that you tell, so much information upon the new trends going on. That's amazing. So keep up that good work. And to Tanmay, you have really got a support of your parents. Otherwise, many parents won't allow that. If you don't have a job security and a secure job, how will you do, what will you do, and everything. So my question to Tanmay is, what is one message that you want to give to the parents? Because at times parents play a major role, when students or children start going with certain jobs and they feel very insecure. So what will be your message to the parents?
Ma'am, my answer would be so many people ask me, whichever college I go to, that were your parents supportive when you started stand up? Were your parents supportive when you started doing this? And my answer is always yes. Yes, because the thing is, I never asked for it. I never asked कि मुझे stand up करना है, can I do it? I never asked it. मैंने परमिशन ही नहीं ली. मेरे पास स्कूल में होता तो स्कूल में क्या मना करते कि नहीं असेंबली में परफॉर्म ना करो, नहीं टीचर्स डे पे टीचर्स पे जोक्स ना, नहीं चिल्ड्रंस डे पे चिल्ड्रन पे जोक ना. I never asked for it, and because of that, I think when I started doing comedy, और धीरे धीरे वो एक्सलेट होते होते from what I am today, they are very proud. They're very proud क्योंकि हंसराज में एडमिशन नहीं मिला, अरे हंसराज पे जोक कर रहा है, अरे एसआरसीसी में एडमिशन नहीं मिला, अरे एसआरसी पे जोक कर रहा है. So I think they're very proud from what I'm doing. And I also have to add that it's not just because of my parents. It's a very big deal has to do with my sister. So the thing with my sister, I have an elder sister of 5 years. She's 5 years elder to me, and she's the perfect ideal child you want. Okay, तो उसको बचपन से कथक सिखाया गया था, उसको क्लासिकल सिंगिंग सिखाई गई थी, उसको गिटार सिखाया गया था, उसको सब कराया गया था. She took science in class 11. She from an ICSE school, and she scored 95.5% in 11 and 12. And then she got admission in Kirorimal DU, and then she went abroad and she got admission in Northwestern University, which is an Ivy League. And now she's currently working in San Francisco as a data analyst. So she did everything, so I didn't have to. So my parents, my parents, they were to me, अब तुम्हें जो करना है कर लो, because एक एक बच्चा तो निकल गया ना. So I think अगर तो आई थिंक अगर अगर मेरी दीदी मेरी तरह होती और बोलती नहीं मुझे सिंगर बनना है, तो थोड़ी दिक्कत होती. तो थोड़ा कन्विंस करना होता कि अरे नहीं, दीदी को सिंगर बनने दो, मुझे कॉमेडियन बनने दो. बट एक 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 बच्ची निकल गई ना, तो दूसरे बच्चे को थोड़ा लेवरेज दे दिया. अच्छा तुम्हें ठीक है, जो करो करो, जो करना है करो.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much, both of you, for taking out time and coming. I am very sure that if I am so impressed and inspired by them, I think my students would have been much more inspired by them. So think differently. I think this is what they say. And what 3 points Animesh sir gave you, stick to those points. They're very important. And Animesh, I would also like to ask you one thing, that you said keep writing everything. So at times in school we have the diary writing activity, and we do promote that write your daily diary. What is other way? Is there any like certain topics they should be writing? They should be concentrating on certain things that you would suggest?
So again, my answer would be highly biased from my own experiences as a person who works in news. But what I would recommend is I did write a lot of diaries when I was young. But after a point of time, it gets monotonous, especially in these days when you can't differentiate one day from the other. You're basically living the same day every single day. Uh, what I would recommend instead would be, pick one particular topic, any particular topic from current events that has really struck your fancy. Like, what are your opinions on what has happened now? There's tons of events that's happening every single day, and nowadays kids have a lot more access to information than we had back in the day. So kids are very well led themselves. They have a lot of access to news, lots of access to opinions on the internet. So what I would recommend instead would people to write out what they think of current events, what are their opinions on how things have shaped up, and what would be their recommendations if there's a problem in the country or a problem in the world, what they believe would work, or their predictions for the future. That would be a much more interesting mental exercise rather than just saying that I got up at 6 in the morning and I took a bath. I get up every day at 6 in the morning and take a bath. Now after a point of time, it's just repetitive. So that's the good thing about news. It changes every single day. That's what makes it news in the first place. So they can write their thoughts and opinions about current events, and that would be really helpful.
Thank you, thank you, thank you so
Thank you,
much,
ma'am.
thank you so much, and thank you so much for being here with us. And it was a real enriching session with both of you, and we look forward, to having more sessions. This was just one group which you had it, and maybe the senior lot also. If you could interact with them, it will be really, really good. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Kaur ma'am. Thanks a lot
Thank you,
for your
ma'am.
kind
Thank you
words.
so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your exhilarating locutions. And now we come to the end of this amazing session. I would like to thank our honorable guests, admins, teachers, and everyone here for their adhering presence. See you all tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. for the third day of Everyday Miracles. Hope you all have a wonderful day ahead. Jai Hind.